The U.S. Supreme Court is blocking the creation of a second majority black congressional district in the state of Alabama.
The ruling strikes a significant blow to voting rights across the state. The High Court voted 5-4 in favor of a controversial Republican-drawn congressional map. Chief Justice John Roberts joined the court's 3 liberal justices in dissent. Voting rights activists say the map dilutes the power of black voters in Alabama and violates federal laws. The Supreme Court's majority says the map can remain in effect through the 2022 midterms.
Jessica Levinson is a CBS News legal contributor and professor at Loyola Law School. She joins us now for more on this. Hi, Jessica. Great to see you. So, Jessica, we understand that we now have a more conservative court. What is going on here? What is the argument for allowing a law to stand, even as the court says, well, maybe it won't stand in the end, but we're going to allow it to stand for now? What's going on here?
Such a good question. A couple of things are going on here, and I think both of them signal a loss for voting rights activists. And I think what's really going on here is we're seeing that this is not just a conservative court, but a court that's so conservative that they've lost Chief Justice John Roberts, who, let's remember, was the author of the Shelby County decision from almost a decade ago, where the Supreme Court essentially gutted half of the Voting Rights Act. So I think in the short term, what's going on, to your question, is that a majority of the court is saying, we don't want to tell Alabama to quickly redraw their maps. We'd rather just keep the status quo, and there's not enough time, and there's arguments on the other side that maybe those challenging these maps won't win. I think long-term what's going on here is that this is a Supreme Court that's evidencing, frankly, hostility to what's left of the Voting Rights Act, and that probably the protections will be whittled away when they do hear this case.
And we know that redistricting is something that Republicans and Democrats have both admitted they've benefited from over the years. Why are they waiting, the Supreme Court justices waiting until next term to change something that could impact the outcome of the upcoming election?
It's such a good question. So this case comes to the Supreme Court on something that we've all talked about more and more, which is the emergency docket. This was an emergency appeal. Alabama said, don't make us redraw these laws, even though there was a unanimous district court, a 3-panel court, 2 appointees by President Trump, 1 appointee by President Clinton, that said you need to redraw these lines, otherwise it could violate the voting rights of African Americans in Alabama. Here, the Supreme Court says, no, let's keep it as is. Now, why are they saying let's put it off? Because this came up to them as an emergency appeal. And what they're saying is, don't change anything in Alabama now. Wait until we can hear this case as a matter of our typical calendar. What that means practically on the ground is that these particular lines, where African Americans are 27% of the population, but a majority in 1 of 7 districts, 14% of the districts, that these will stay in effect for the next election cycle.
So, Jessica, what precedent does this set for other similar voting rights cases? Does this mean that state law is now preeminent to this Supreme Court?
So, yes and no. I mean, I think this is, in a lot of ways, an important decision, but it is an order that comes from the emergency docket. It's not a full decision on the merits that happens when, as we were just talking about, the court sets the case for calendar, there's a full briefing, there's amicus briefs, there's oral arguments. So we need to be careful about saying it's precedent setting in the sense that it tells us a new perspective. I think it previews for us what the court's new perspective will be. But in terms of precedent, I think, again, we should be circumspect because it is a decision that comes on an emergency appeal. It's not a full decision on the merits.
And wouldn't it be interesting if there was a great exodus of Democrats moving to Republican-drawn districts or vice versa, just mess up the map system completely? But we know that's probably not going to happen. Yeah.
We know it probably will not happen. And we know, of course, that this is so important for the balance of power, and that there are a lot of decisions that are being made on the state court level as we speak, dealing with this, vital process of redrawing district lines. Right. And that the states are doing a lot more work now because I think of what they see happening in the Supreme Court. which is them kind of saying, hands off, we don't
is
really
what it
want to
is,
be that
yeah.
active.
Jessica Levinson, thank you for breaking all of that down.